And our top focus today, the 27 members of the European Union convened an emergency meeting on Sunday to discuss their response to Trump's threat of imposing a 10% tariffs on its European allies for disagreeing with his plan to acquire Greenland. French President Emmanuel Macron called on fellow leaders to activate the EU's powerful anti-coercion law, also known as the Big Bazooka, if Trump went ahead with his tariff threats, French media reported, citing his team. The anti-coercion law, which has so far never been used, enables the EU to impose punitive economic measures on a country seeking to force a policy change. The head of European Council, Antonio Costa, said the EU showed readiness to defend themselves against any form of coercion. He even announced an emergency EU summit, which is likely to take place this Thursday. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said Trump's tariff would be a mistake. The Dutch Foreign Minister David Van Wiel described Trump's tariff threats to allies as blackmail as reaction from European leaders continue to pile up. Germany's Deputy Chancellor Lars Klingbeil said his country will not be blackmailed and there will be European response. The Finnish President Alexander Stubb said tariffs would undermine the transatlantic relationship and risk a dangerous downward spiral. The EU was also considering reactivating a package of counter tariffs against euros 93 billion worth US goods. Starting February 1st, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, UK, Netherlands and Finland will face a 10% tariff. In a Truth Social post on Saturday, Trump further threatened to increase the tariff to 25% from June 1st if a deal is not reached for the total purchase of Greenland. He claimed Greenland of being strategically vulnerable with both China and Russia eyeing it, and Denmark was incapable of defending the territory.
In this escalation of tariffs, U.S. President Donald Trump, has much to lose as well, and so will his own farmers and his own manufacturers. We can see that Donald Trump is using tariffs, initially as an economic tool to benefit Americans, and now he's using them for coercion. It's clearly a coercive approach that he's using to threaten European countries. In any case, we need to approach this with a certain degree of force. It's clear that with Donald Trump, it's no longer about the law, it's about force. I wanted to tell you that the perspective of an increase in tariffs for countries that have chosen to contribute to Greenland's security, in my view, is a mistake, and I do not agree with it. I share the U.S. presidency's focus on Greenland and the Arctic, which is a strategic area where excessive interference by actors that may be hostile must be avoided. But I believe that in this sense, the intention of some European countries to send troops, to take part in greater security, should have been understood not as an initiative directed against the United States, but rather against other actors. It seems to me that there was a problem of understanding and communication on this point. As far as I am concerned, I continue to insist on the role of NATO. It is NATO the place where we must seek to jointly organize deterrence tools against interference that may be hostile in an obviously strategic territory. The fact that NATO has begun to work on this is a good initiative, and for this very reason I believe that imposing new sanctions today is a mistake. I believe it is necessary to resume dialogue on this and avoid escalation, and that is what I am working on. I spoke with Donald Trump a few hours ago and told him what I think, and I spoke with the NATO Secretary General, who confirmed that NATO has started to work in this direction. Clearly, over the course of the day, I will also speak with other European leaders. For now, a core meeting of the European Union has been organized, but I believe that at this stage it is very important to talk to one another and that it is very important to avoid an escalation, because it is possible to work together to reach a result that is useful and necessary for everyone.
The Prime Minister of Greenland, and there's a full commitment, not surprisingly, as is appropriate, of NATO partners to the security of Greenland. That's the right way to address this security, and the right way, finish and then hand back in terms of whether it's development of critical minerals, is to develop in partnership.